Good morning once again, everyone. So thankful that you could join me. Now let's go over Genesis 7. And the Lord said unto Noah, Come thou and all thy house into the ark, for thee have I seen righteous before me in this generation. I know that you probably already heard this, but it's quite significant that God says, Come into the ark. Come unto me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden, and I shall give you rest. The ESV and the NIV, they say, Go into the ark. Now, there are other translations, like the New King James, that do say, Come into the ark. But it goes to show you how you have to watch what you're reading. I would stick to the King James Version, just simply because you find way too many other. It's not even saying the same thing. It doesn't even say go into the ark. It doesn't even say come into the ark. It says go into the ark, meaning that God is outside of the ark. But with the KJ, do you see how this one little word is so significant? Which side of the ark's door do you think the Lord was on? Now, this matters because if you read one Bible, it's going to tell you that God's outside the ark. If you read the KJV, it tells you that he's already in the ark and he's telling Noah and his family to come in. Jesus said, For where two or three are gathered together in my name, there am I in the midst of them. He says, I'm in the midst of you. He's not outside your house. He's not outside the church. He's there. He's right in the midst. He's listening and watching and paying attention. Of every clean beast thou shalt take to thee by sevens, the male and his female, and of beasts that are not clean by two, the male and his female. So you're taking 7 clean of all the clean, and then you're taking 2 of every unclean. Of fowls also of the air by sevens, the male and the female, to keep seed alive upon the face of all the earth. And Noah did according unto all that the Lord commanded him. Very important. Imagine if Noah hadn't done that. If Noah hadn't done this, man, you wouldn't be here. That's how important that is. And Noah was 600 years old when the flood of waters was upon the earth. He was exactly 600. Exactly 600 years old whenever the flood came upon the earth. I believe that's significant because just as we've spoken on this before, just as there were 6 days of creation, you can look at 6,000 years, which that's how long that we've been on the earth, about 6,000 years. And then in the 7th year is or at the end of all of this 6,000 years, we're going to see God's wrath, just as the end of the 600 years of Noah. So I believe this is showing it's just like how Enoch was the 7th from Adam, and he was raptured. Okay, so we're seeing 6 and 7, how the 6 is the ending of all of these things, and how the 7th is the rest and the millennial reign, and it's beautiful. And Noah went in, and his sons, and his wife, and his sons' wives with them, into the ark because of the waters of the flood, of clean beasts, and of beasts that are not clean, and of birds, and of every living thing that creeps on the earth. There went in, 2 by 2, to Noah into the ark, the male and the female, as God had commanded Noah. And it came to pass after 7 days that the waters of the flood were upon the earth. So it took 7 days to load up all the animals. The animals came to Noah, as we learned in the last chapter. They were brought to Noah, all of them, and Noah was storing them. He was putting their food in. This took a week, 1 week for all the animals that God wanted to come unto Noah, and this is how it is. We see with the the false prophet Balaam, whenever he's riding the donkey, how the donkey can see the angel, but he can't. That's why the donkey stops. And he starts beating the donkey, and that shows us something, I believe, how animals may be more in tune with the supernatural more than we are. And I don't know. I mean, it's just food for thought. Maybe totally wrong because angels appeared unto man numerous times. But who's to say that animals, we know that they're given that kind of a privilege. But 7 days it took for all the animals to load up onto the ark. In the 600th year of Noah's life, there we go, in the 2nd month, the 7th day of the month, the same day were all the fountains of the great deep broken up, and the windows of heaven were open. This was the first rain upon the earth. we're told in Genesis 2 how it didn't have to rain upon the earth and how the dew would rise up and it would water the ground. There was no need for rain. But then we're also told about how the waters were parted from the waters and this on the second day. Many believe that this was the storing up of what God would just rain down upon man 1,500 years later. Right here may have been something like what Ken Hovind and others teach, how, and I know it wasn't that broad and everything. This is just to give you a general idea, much closer to the earth actually. But why the oxygen level was so much better and how they could grow so much more, and this kind of, in a rough way, represents what the waters may have burst down upon the earth. This may have represented it. There's probably no ocean to speak of. There's probably just rivers. We know that there were rivers, but I'd say that's where a lot of the oceans came from. I believe that's pretty rational. And the rain was upon the earth 40 days and 40 nights. Many atheists have mocked this, saying, and I'm going to read what they say. Rain fell for 40 days, 40 nights, and flooded the entire world and covered all the highest mountains, they're saying. And then they come down here and they say, well, rain fell on Hawaii, one of the areas of Oahu, Hawaii, continuously for 247 days and nights. August 27th, 1993 through April 30th, 1994. It didn't cause a global flood. They're saying, okay, well, the Bible's nonsense, total nonsense. Atheists do this constantly. At the time of the flood, it was not mere rain. The windows of heaven opened up, and as I just seen, there was this enormous body of water probably above, and it was filtering the rays from the sun so that everybody lived longer and got taller and everything. Their oxygen was better. And it also says how the fountains of the deep burst open. So this was cataclysmic on a global epic level of these waters just. And a lot of people say that because the Earth's landscape would have been so busted up after this, that this is where we get many of the mountains. And we'll get into that later. But the fountains of the deep broke open, the waters poured upon the earth, and this was 40 days, 40 nights, and I bet it was terrifying, absolutely terrifying. And the selfsame day entered Noah and Shem and Ham and Japheth, the sons of Noah, and Noah's wife, and the 3 wives of his sons with them into the ark. So it's telling you on the very day that all of them went into the ark, it rained for 40 days and 40 nights. They and every beast after his kind, and all the cattle after their kind, and every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth after his kind, and every fowl after his kind, every bird of every sort. And they went in unto Noah into the ark, 2 and 2 of all flesh, wherein is the breath of life. Now notice right here, do you remember how God breathed into the nostrils of Adam and he was made a living soul? Many people claim that animals, and I've had numerous arguments with many people over this, I believe that animals have a soul. This one verse, I believe, proves it. How wherein is the breath of life? The breath of life is the soul that was placed in Adam. Now we're saying right here how animals have that. Now, let me make a distinction. This is not a spirit. It's just a soul, meaning a personality. It's the thing that even atheists have this. Everything except probably insects, because they breathe through their body. This is proof that animals aren't just... And the Bible tells us clearly how that God watches how men treat animals. He says, don't harm the beast. Don't harm your beast. Don't harm your pets. Don't harm them. No. And so, a lot of times, I mean, dog's called man's best friend. It's a lot of times it's not his wife. It is, but I see how the dog can be so high up there on a man's companionship level. I don't believe that... Of course, animals, they can't be saved in the sense that we are. But I don't believe that animals sin either. They just do what is natural to them. Whenever Nebuchadnezzar becomes a beast, he he loses his mind. He just loses his logical mind. And Jesus says upon the cross, "Forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do." So ignorance is one of those factors that may excuse, I would say most certainly excuses so many living things. A lot of people would ask, well, are there, did my pet go to heaven? I wouldn't say no to that. I really wouldn't. I wouldn't say no. I believe that God loves the animals just as much as just as much as we do, and maybe even a whole lot more. So we'll see whenever we get there. It's a God question. And they that went in, male and female of all flesh, as God had commanded him, and the Lord shut him in. It shows right here how much God cares for the animals, because he's saving them just like he's saving mankind. And the flood was 40 days upon the earth, and the waters increased and bare up the ark, and it was lift up above the earth. And the waters prevailed, and were increased greatly upon the earth, and the ark went upon the face of the waters. Pay close attention to these next few verses. Many have been misled into believing this is fiction due to this. And the waters prevailed exceedingly upon the earth, and all the high hills that were under the heaven, whole heaven, were covered. 15 cubits upward did the waters prevail, and the mountains were covered. Okay? 15 cubits upward did the waters prevail. That's about 23 feet. Did the waters prevail, and the mountains were covered. So many have tried to say 22 feet. I could have found a high hill that I could have gotten on way above 22 feet, or even a mountain. I take it in its proper context now. 15 cubits, about 23 feet upward did the waters prevail. So above everything, it was about 22 feet above. So it prevailed above everything. It didn't just rain 23 feet of water, 22. And the mountains were covered. So it was 23 feet even above the mountains. There was no escaping this flood at all. And we find evidence of this. As you can see with this news article, it says Mount Everest still holds mysteries for scientists. And it goes on to talk about how did seashells and fish fossils make it to the top of Mount Everest. Here's another article one can find on the Weather Channel. Why are there fish fossils high up in the Himalayas? The mighty Himalayas, also known as the roof of the world, rise up to an incredible height, even disappearing into the clouds on some days. Some of the world's highest peaks are in the Himalayas, including Mount Everest, which is at 30,000 feet or so. They're finding these things at the top of these mountains. That is incredible. How'd they get up there? Worldwide flood, Noah's day. Exactly what I'm telling you. This is all truth. Be confident that you're hearing truth. And all flesh died that moved upon the earth, both of fowl, and of cattle, and of beast, and of every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth, and every man. All in whose nostrils was the breath of life, of all that was in the dry land, died. And every living substance was destroyed, which was upon the face of the ground, both man and cattle, and the creeping things, and the fowl of the heaven, and they were destroyed from the earth, and Noah only remained alive, and they that were with him in the ark. Catch this again for the very last verse of Genesis 7. And the waters prevailed upon the earth 150 days. We'll get into it a little bit more in the next chapter, but according to studies that I found, Dustin even tried working out the math on this. They were on the ark at least a year that we figured out. At the very most, 14 months. 15 months, like Dustin figured out. But at the very most, it was about 14 months. At the least, it was about 65 days. So that's how long. A few years ago, one last note. A few years ago, there was a movie made. Big Hollywood blockbuster and all of this. It starred Russell Crowe as Noah. And the director himself Aronofsky, whatever his name is. He directed Black Swan and others. He's been involved with the most devilish movies you can imagine. But he called this the most unbiblical biblical movie ever made. And he had no qualms about making it. He's an atheist, diehard atheist. So devilish is the Noah movie that it actually has the fallen angels helping Noah. And God seems like the bad guy. And there's a survivor of the flood that breaks into the ark and he tries to kill Noah and take over the ark and such. And it's this just madness. It's complete madness. Everything. No wonder it says in the last days there'll be scoffers and mockers of the Bible come along, and they'll twist God's word to the extent where it's just such a sickening thing to see. I'd never ever watch this movie. It's not even a good movie. Even if by secular standards, it's not good. But right here, you see these rock demons beating up people, trying to keep them from getting on the ark as Noah's getting out. This is nothing like what had happened, and no wonder Hollywood would invest millions and millions of dollars. I'm talking about millions and millions and millions of dollars just to get this narrative out there, because it completely takes away from the biblical account and makes it fictional like Harry Potter, and it's satanic to the core. The movie was released in March 28th, 2014, and it cost $125 million to make. And they say it almost costs just as much to promote as it ever does to make for these blockbusters. So 200, we'll say 200, at the very least, $200 million in order to pump out this $200 million, or $250 million, in order to push this anti-biblical movie out into the masses. This is Satan at work. There's no doubt about it. Just imagine Noah was preaching to them, look, the world is going to flood. Everyone's going to die. Get in the ark, just listen to me. Just get in the ark. And no one believed him. People just scoffed at him, laughed at him, didn't care what he had to say. It's the same thing they do to us. Oh, look at Stephen, he's quit partying with us. He's quit going to clubs and bars, and now he's preaching this Bible thing. He's become a nutcase. That's all he ever does is talk about the Bible. So did Noah. And if you do the same, you will be blessed for this. You just got to hang on in there. It says, hold fast unto that which was delivered unto you. So hold fast to it and don't give it up. Don't let these people discourage you away from the truth. And God of peace be with you all. Amen.